Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I wanted to go over the top 10 most funded board games of 2023, as well as a variety of other crowdfunding statistics. Now, I want to be very clear up front over here. I'm going to try to keep this as neutral as possible, but please take into account that I am CMO of Gamefound, and that does mean that as I go over crowdfunding statistics, especially when there are comparisons, there are areas where Kickstarter is doing better, there are areas where Gamefound is doing better. I'm going to try to stay as neutral as possible, but it is what it is. So take that into account as you watch this video. If this is a video that you don't want to watch because of that, totally understand. Some of this information will be objective information, and some will inevitably have that subconscious bias filter through the way I communicate, present, all of that. I'll also say that towards the end of this video, I will have statistics that are specific to Gamefound. They are more interesting. They're not about, oh, Gamefound versus Kickstarter. They're more about just, I think they're very interesting statistics about crowdfunding, about, follow-through percentage, last days, first days. Those are from Gamefound just because I have access to those statistics more easily and more readily, but those aren't necessarily versus or against. But again, if this is something that's not for you, if that bothers you, completely understand. But with that, let's go ahead and start off. And I'm going to go through this in a few sections. We're going to talk about the overall state of crowdfunding, total market share, how things are doing the past few years, where things are now. We're going to go through the top 10 most funded games, and then we're going to go through those extra Gamefound statistics, and of course, timestamps to everything down below. But starting off, before we get into my old tablet and all the crowdfunding campaigns themselves. And by the way, before we get to there, if you want to go ahead and jot down your own guesses of what you think the 10 most funded tabletop games or 10 most funded board games, because I'm not including RPGs in this, I think there would be, for full clarity, I believe there would be one RPG in the top 10 tabletop games, but I focus more on board games, so I'm focusing on the top 10 board games. There's one RPG, I don't remember what it was. I think it was on Kickstarter. It might have been a backup. I think it was on Kickstarter, but again, I'm pretty sure it's Kickstarter, but I'm not certain. But anyways, if you want to go ahead and put your guesses down of what you think the 10 most funded board games were in 2023, go ahead and enter those down below before I go ahead and surprise you with whatever they were. And anyways, let's go ahead and start this off, starting off with general crowdfunding and market share. In 2021, the overall tabletop, source, and I should be clear, I am including Kickstarter, Gamefound, and BackKit in anything I talk about over here, but there are a few other tabletop, or there are a few other crowdfunding campaigns, such as Indiegogo, or, oh my gosh, Game on Tabletop. There's a few others where there is some degree of funding. I'm not including those in those, just I don't have those as easily. But as far as those three, Gamefound, BackKit, and Kickstarter, as far as those three, in 2021, the total funded in the tabletop category, and this does include RPGs, is $292 million. The reason this does and my top 10 doesn't is because one is an easy list for me to filter out that one RPG, and the other would be a lot harder to go ahead and get through that data. But $292 million was raised in 2021. In 2022, the market saw a dip to $264 million. In other words, there's a big dip over there. We definitely saw a step backwards last year. And then in 2023, which I guess 2023 is last year at this point, it went back up to $272.5 million. So again, 292 to 264 to 272.5. So there is some degree of a drop and then a recovery as well. And most of the data from the past few years until this year and last year will be from Kickstarter. They have the vast bulk of it. And to that end, well, let's actually go ahead and break down that market share by company and where things are. To that end, Kickstarter has the lion's share of the actual funding totals, coming in at 75% or 75.86% if we want to be technical. 75.86% of the current funding in 2023 is going to be from Kickstarter. That's going to be $206 million raised on Kickstarter's $206.7 million raised on Kickstarter in the tabletop category in 2023. And then Gamefound has $52.3 million raised, or 19.2%. I actually think it's a drop. This is where numbers are a little all over the place. I think we actually did 56 million, so I have to take a look at the breakdown of where things are. But 19.2% of the market share in 2023, and then BackKit has 4.94% of the market share in 2023 with 13.5 million. So again, it's 75, 19, and 4.94% of the market share respectively from Kickstarter to Gamefound to BackKit. Now that's going to be an overall arc, and again, this is where, again, it's hard to present data without having some degree of instinctual favoring the way I present things, but obviously Kickstarter has the lion's share, although Gamefound has been growing in the past recent years. Specifically, if you look back at 2022, or 2021 I should say, Kickstarter had $270 million raised. That dropped to $236.4 in 2022, which I believe 2022 was the first dip Kickstarter had seen in their total funding since, I want to say, 2014. I'm pretty sure. I'll try to to link to it down below. I think it's a Polygon article, if I'm not mistaken, that went through some of the data. And my data is from a variety of sources. I try to keep it as accurate as possible, though. But anyways, 270 million to 236.4 to 206.7 in 2023. Gamefound, on the other hand, 2 years ago had $22 million 2 years ago. Last year had $28 million. That's 2022. So I guess 2021 was 22 million. 2022 was 28 million. And in 2023 was 52.3 million. So definitely going upwards, trending upwards, and biting into that market share to some extent. And back at the only data I have is from this past year, which is primarily when they launched, with that 13.5 million raised, or 4.94% of the total share. As a general opinionated, kind of not hard driven data, but as general observational information, and again, please take this with a grain of salt. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but take it for what it's worth, is Backit's doing a really good job in the RPG market. They do a great job as far as getting the RPGs, and they also expand outwards to other things that aren't necessarily as tabletop, or, pin projects or side adjacent things as well. They've definitely seen a degree of growth, and they've done a good job capturing the RPG market, while a little bit less so in the tabletop. They came out the gate with a bunch of, in the board games, they came out the gate with a bunch of projects, and obviously Gloomhaven is going to be the big success there, but they haven't had much impact over there in terms of that aspect. Kickstarter obviously has a wide umbrella, and something that's going to be interesting, we're going to get into this shortly with the top 10 most funded in general, but in the top 10 and most funded games of 2023, Gamefound has 5 of the top 10, Kickstarter has 4 of the top 10, and Backit has 1 of the top 10, which does lead to a bit of an interesting just observational data. If Kickstarter has 75.86% or whatever it was of the market share, but they have 4 of the top 10 most funded, I mean, in other words, Gamefound's being in that category, a big part of that is because Gamefound has historically done better with larger creators. The larger you are, usually the more impact the platform brings to the table. Over the past years, and again, trying to stay as neutral as possible, but over the past year, they've definitely, Gamefound, we have continued to grow as far as expanding outwards, but there still is that disparity. Kickstarter is going to have a lot of these smaller indie projects, and this adds up across the total of it, and Gamefound is doing better in that mid to large creator range. As a Gamefound note, that's constantly an area you're trying to improve on and work on, but that's just where things are as of right now. Speaking of which, as far as the top 10 most funded of 2023, we're going to get into that, and apologies as I try to sidestep through this. It's a bit of a mess trying to be as objective as possible, which usually my content is very opinionated, and I'm trying to remove opinions from this particular video for obvious reasons, which does lead to a bit of tripping over myself as I try to navigate that inherent mess. But the good news is, from here on in, I'm pretty sure it's just data and statistics, no, peanut gallery and 2 cents. So, let's go ahead and go through the top 10 most funded games of 2023. Grab your pens and papers, boys and girls. Did you lock in your guesses? What do you have? Tell me down below in the comments how well you scored on how many of the top 10 you got right. You could have guessed up to 10. You're allowed up to 10 guesses. If you want to pause the video, you're allowed up to 10 guesses, and then you can guess how many, and you can tell me after how many of the top 10 you got correct. And we're going to go ahead and start now. Starting with wrong one. Whoops, over here. There we go. Okay, I had the wrong tab open. And these are all going to be in US dollars, by the way, but going through it over here. Starting off at number 10, we have Dragon Eclipse from Awakened Realms. Dragon Eclipse from Awakened Realms is going to be at number 10, coming in at 3.65 million raised, with 18,000 backers overall. It's worth noting over here, some spoilers for the rest of the list, but Command has 2 of the top 10, Awakened Realms has 3 of the top 10, which means half of the list is really from 2 companies, and the other 5 are from, well, 5 other companies. But Dragon Eclipse over on Gamefound, this is going to be that campaign game that's going to give you, and it's worth noting, just for those who check, if you do go to the, let me see if I can go back here, if you do go to the pages, you might see different numbers in case you want to understand that disparity. So for example, if you go to the Dragon Eclipse page right now, you'll see it says 4.339. So where's that other number from? Well, you have to tap View Original Campaign. That 4.339, which is obviously like $700,000 more, includes late pledges and other things like that, as as far as the project has gone. The 3.652 here is the original crowdfunding total. On Gamefound, some of the pages will show the original amount, and some will not. That's a creator by creator basis. A creator is able to sit there and say, I want to show on the page the full funding total, or I just want to show whatever the crowdfunding campaign funding total was. Creators have that option, and so some of them are going to show the same number as the original crowdfunding campaign, and some will show a different number, just in case you want any clarity on that number. But again, Dragon Eclipse over here, $3.6 million raised, 18,000 backers. This is going to be a campaign game from Awakened Realms, kind of vibing with a bit of a semi-Pokemon kind of adjacent, not really Pokemon at all, but has that collectible aspect of you're collecting dragons, you're going in packs, you're going on little adventures. In fact, right now, speaking of Pokemon, right now in the background of this video, my son's playing Pal World. I told him to be very, very quiet throughout this video. Hi, Yoda. You can say hi.
Hi. Wait, can I say something?
Go ahead, say something.
Okay.
We're getting an interruption over here.
So, hello. On Pal World right now, I have this pal called Loot Moon. They took it they merged it with I believe two other actual Pokemon, and one pal. So they took a fun pal. They took a demon and a pal from one of the seasons of Pokemon Adventures, Ultimate, I think, and then they merged it into Loot Moon. And right now, he is one of my strongest pals. He died 10 minutes ago, but now he's perfectly fine. And this is Board Game Co.
I'm currently level 21 in Pal World myself, been going through that, and there are a lot of things. Wait.
He conquered a boss.
Super cool that way. Anyways.
I'm gonna catch another.
So, on Pal World in general, whole different conversation on Pal World, lots of merge, whatever. But in any case, now is a good time. If you are hooked on Pal World and you want the tabletop version of it, go ahead and back Dragon Eclipse and all that stuff. In any case, Dragon Eclipse leans a bit into that Pokemon collectible aspect with packs that give you that collectible vibe that are not actually collectible, but they give you that vibe. You open them up or whatever it is. You have at least this dragon over here. It's obviously going to have Awakened Realms miniatures and all that stuff. That's going to be Dragon Eclipse. I've had a chance to play through the prototype. You can check out my coverage on that. That's our number 10. Our number 9 is going to be Stalker the Board Game, coming in at $3.768 million raised, $15,000 raised. Stalker the Board Game, again from Awakened Realms, is going to be number 2 of 3. I bet most of you guessed the last one over there. But anyway, Stalker is going to be based on the video game, obviously, the Stalker video game, and it's going to give you, you know, that tabletop vibes, I guess, as far as the skirmish encounters, going through miniature campaigns. So the goal is to make this more accessible, giving you 8 to 12 hour campaigns instead of a long, overarching whatever. But they have a bunch of these campaigns, so you could go through a bunch of these mini campaigns as you gather equipment, go through your gear, level up your stuff, all that stuff, going through a skirmish kind of semi-stealth, just tear the world apart video game in a board game. That's going to be Stalker the Board Game from Awakened Realms. Coming in at number 8, we have Zombicide White Death. This is going to be Kamon's first of 2 projects on this list. Did you get the other one? I wonder if you did. I don't know. Zombicide White Death. This is going to be continuing their medieval Zombicide. They had Black Plague and Green Horde way back when, and now they have Zombicide White Death, which I'm still intrigued as far as how cross-compatible things will be or completely different. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I do have this coming. I did back this, but coming in at 19,000 backers, $3.83 million raised. Zombicide White Death is the 8th most funded over here, continuing the long tradition of Zombicide, just continuously raising an absolute ton of money every single year, no matter how many people on Facebook are upset about Kamon and the fact that people keep buying Zombicide. It's like Call of Duty. Like, there's an audience. The audience exists. I'm part of the problem. Anyways, number 7. Number 7 we have over here, we have Dice Throne X-Men Marvel Missions Co-op. Okay, this is going to be... Oh, that's interesting. This is going to be one of 2 Marvel-themed things in the top 10. So in the top 10 most funded board games of 2023, we have 2 Marvel themes in there. I think it's only 2. I didn't actually double check, but I think only 2 over there. So Marvel's got its own little IP introduction. In fact, I wonder how many are IP, because so far we have Stalker, 2 Marvels. That means at least 3 of these are IP-based. I wonder if there's more. I think there's 4. I think there's 4 in the IP category, but let's go through them and see them as we go. Anyways, that's not bad, actually. There's been worse in the past. 4 out of 10 for the top most funded, and by IP, I don't include things that are rehashing Zombicide. I don't consider an IP of Zombicide. I'm saying outside the board game space IP. Anyways, Dice Throne X-Men Marvel Missions coming in at 21,000 backers, $4.2 million raised. In fact, I think that might be the most backers. We have 18,000, 15,000, we have 18,000, I think it's 19,000. So far, we have 21,000 as the most amount of backers so far. I'm curious. I ordered this by most funding. But either way, we have Dice Throne X-Men Marvel Missions Co-op. This brings you Dice Throne X-Men, so it's the 4th big box of Dice Throne. We had Dice Throne Season 1, Season 2, Marvel. Now we have X-Men. But it also, more importantly, brings you missions. So if you want to go ahead and play missions, which I really enjoyed. I've never actually played Dice Throne Adventures, but Dice Throne Missions, I can tell you from that, was definitely fun and an enjoyable way to play through Dice Throne. Again, you can check out content on the channel, but that's going to be Dice Throne from Roxley Games. Games, or from Dice Tone, which is a subdivision at Roxy at this point. We have The Witcher Path of Destiny, so we have jumping past the most backers over here, 29,000 backers, so we just knocked that $20,000 out of the door over there. $4.4 million raised over here. This coming in at our number 6 most funded tabletop game. This is coming to you from Go On Board, and it's another, oh, it's an IP. It's an IP, so maybe we're at 5 IPs? Now I'm not tracking. So we currently have Dice Throne and Marvel over there. We have Stalker and this. So we have 3 IPs so far. We have at least one more. 5. So 5 of the top 10 are IPs. So half of them are IPs. The Witcher Path of Destiny from Go On Board, bringing you more Witcher gameplay. I love The Witcher Old World from Go On Board. I enjoy Witcher Path of Destiny as well. Very different style games. One an adventure game. We level up your Witcher and all that. The other one is more about the card management and trying to go through a narrative tale, but playing it more mechanically as opposed to narratively, because otherwise you'll lose. If you try to play this game narratively, you just incidentally might win, but it's incidental at that point. Anyways, that's going to be The Witcher Path of Destiny with $4.4 million raised from Go On Board. Coming at number 5, we have The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. Again, another IP over here from Chip Theory Games. This is going to be 14,982 backers at $4.683 million raised. Coming in at our number 5 over here. This is bringing you a little Too Many Bones adjacent style gameplay. Lots of differences, lots of things to make it different, but building on that system and the framework from Chip Theory while giving you a very different experience as you wander around these caverns over here, delves, going on delves in the Elder Scrolls, dealing with an old, an above board map, whatever, and having various scenarios and encounters as you go through them. That's going to be the Elder Scrolls from Chip Theory Games. Coming in at number 4 over here, we have, you guessed it, this is the other command title. We have Marvel United Multiverse coming in at 20,886 backers with $4.7 million raised. That's going to be Marvel United Multiverse, the 4th most funded tabletop game in this list in 2023 in general. And again, another IP title and our 2nd Marvel title. So again, more Marvel chibis for all of those who did not get enough the first 2 times. And I'm not judging you, I'm part of you. Coming in at number 3, we have Gloomhaven Grand Festival, 5.053 million raised, which is more than the last one. Did I do that wrong? Did I do that wrong? I think I did it right. Yeah, I did it right. Just losing track of my mind over there. $5.053 million raised, 34,691. Did we just knock out of the... Did we just walk? Yeah, Go On Board is gone as far as the most backers over here. So $5 million raised, 34,691 backers. This is going to be Gloomhaven Grand Festival, which basically includes a bajillion things. We have Gloomhaven, we have Frosthaven, we have Gloomhaven Buttons and Bugs, we have map tiles, we have all these various things in the Gloomhaven universe. We have miniatures, we have an RPG, basically every single thing Gloomhaven under the sun for the next, like, I don't know, X number of years, coming to you from Cephalofair Games with Gloomhaven Grand Festival over on BackKit. Coming in at number 2, we have Battletech Mercenaries, 23,000 backers, 7.5 million, an escalation of 2.5 million from the last one, jumping straight up over here. Battletech Mercenaries from Catalyst Games, just completely destroying things. And this is one of those areas where I have a blind spot to some things. Like, everything else on this list makes sense to me. This, to me, is an area that I have a blind spot in terms of I would never have predicted this would do this well. I just don't know the Battletech market, apparently, which it happens. I mean, blind spots happen, but this is one that took me very much by surprise. And then the number 1 most funded tabletop game of 2023 is going to be Nemesis Retaliation with 41,408 backers. So it's going to be the most number of backers and the most funded with $12.183 million raised, just losing out on that number 2, or I mean, I think the number 1 most funded tabletop campaign, board game campaign ever, I think tabletop and board game, is going to be Frosthaven with 12.9 million, I believe, and then we have 12.2 million for Kingdom Death Monster 1.5, I believe. So Nemesis Retaliation just missing that, coming in at the number 3rd of all time and the most funded of 2023. And that's obviously going to be the Wake Lump's 3rd title, which is the one I assume most of you got right when you're submitting your guesses. And that's what we have for the top 10 most funded tabletop games of 2023, which brings us, now I can put my tablet away and all that stuff, which brings us to the Gamefound statistics parts. Again, these are statistics from Gamefound. I don't think they inherently favor Gamefound, but they're mostly just neutral data, and they're not really comparison data. But if you are not interested in them, you can skip or continue watching as is the case. Personally, I think these things are interesting pieces of information to know in general, but I'm just mindful of, you know, the nature of the bias. In any case, starting off with Stretch Pay. Stretch Pay is going to be something that is unique to Gamefound, at least as of right now. I assume BackKit and Kickstarter will come with it at some point, but for right now, it is a Gamefound only feature. And Stretch Pay currently represented in 2023. Stretch Pay represented represented 29% of the funds collected on Gamefound and 22% of the orders. Basically, it does have a big impact on the orders. There's some additional data. I don't have the exact breakdown, but obviously, as you might assume, the more expensive the average pledge level, the more of an impact StretchPay has on those average pledges. You see campaigns where StretchPay is like 7% of the total, and there are campaigns where, like I said already, 29% of the total. So StretchPay is definitely a thing that backers are leaning into as far as embracing it as something that they can utilize to spread out their funding. I always try to say, spend responsibly. StretchPay gives you the tools to spend irresponsibly, unfortunately, but that means it is up to you. It gives you the tools to work within your budget, but also to make decisions you probably shouldn't make. So I always encourage you, spend responsibly. I think there's a great article from Jamie Stegmaier. I will try to link to it down below, where he really encompasses the exact way I personally feel around these types of installment payment programs, where it's basically an initial resistance, an instinctive resistance against them because, well, if you don't have the money, you shouldn't get it, and then an acknowledgement that there are lots of people who don't do it that way. There are lots of people who base their things around a budget, and being able to sit there and bundle in a $200 pledge across your few months because that's how you want to do it makes sense for those people. So I will link that article down below. I highly encourage you read it. It's exactly how I personally feel about installment payments. A kind of initial resistance, and then but I guess it is a tool for some people. Then from there we have day 1, day 2, and final day percentages. So this is going to be, again, an average. This is not any one campaign. This is an average. But over on Gamefound, 40% of your funding will come in on day 1, on average. Again, that cannot emphasize enough. If you are a creator who's looking to launch a campaign, whether on Kickstarter, on Gamefound, and BackKit, this is not to say what you should expect for your own campaign. This is to say an across-the-board average. But on Gamefound, 40% of the funding comes in day 1. So you have a good sense of, if you want to see how a campaign is going to do, just sit there and look at that day 1 total, and then be like, okay, great, that was 40% of their funding. Let's see how the rest of the campaign goes. You could, to a certain extent, somewhat predict how things are going to go on an average level, not on an individual level. Day 2 is going to see 46% of your funding, meaning not 46 extra, but you're going to see, but the first 2 days will represent 46% funding, which means you're seeing an average of an additional 6% coming in day 2, an additional 5% coming in day 3, bringing you to 51% of your campaign. So at the end of day 3, the average campaign has seen 50% of its funding, and then that's going to drop off at that point. It's going to start dripping into a bit of a slump. The day 4 sees 3.5% jump, and it continues to go down until then. In general, this is the normal trend for most campaigns. You see a very high front end, and then it starts dipping down, and then it goes a little, very, very, very little, and then straight back up. If you follow any of the sites that follow various crowdfunding campaigns, whether it's Tabletop Analytics or any of these things, KickTrack, whatever it is, they all have those data curves that show you that basically campaigns see a front end, a slump, and then the tail end. Speaking of the tail end, on Gamefound, the tail end is going to be around 11% on average for the last 2 days. I believe Kickstarter does have a higher number for this. This is not a better or worse. I think Gamefound is a little bit more front-loaded, which makes sense. They have that preview page, or we have that preview page that's going to be up for a full month for the campaign, giving you time to grow your followers, to see the campaign, to engage in updates and all that. So it's a little bit more front-end loaded, and I think Kickstarter tends to see a bit more in those last 2 days. Like, both platforms will send out those last 48-hour notifications. I think it hits a bit harder on Kickstarter, but I don't have the full breakdown. I can look at an individual campaign on KickTrack. I just don't have the full breakdown of numbers, but on Gamefound, it's going to be 11% on average for the last 2 days. Then from there, we're going to talk a bit about conversions and followers. This is a good example when you're looking at a Gamefound page and you see 7,000 people following the campaign. Well, what does that mean for you? Either curiosity-wise, because you're just curious in the data, or whether you're a creator and this is useful information for you to know. And to that end, you're looking at your average draft to followers conversion in a successful campaign is going to be 26%, meaning on average, if you have 10,000 backers, 10,000 followers, you're going to see 2,600 of those 10,000 turn into backers. Now, to be very clear, and this is an important thing, we'll come back to this soon, that doesn't mean 10,000 followers will equal 2,600 backers. That number will be higher. I'm referring to the pre-going live. So before the campaign goes live, if you have 10,000 backers, 10,000 followers, that on average that'll turn into 2,600 backers. But doing the campaign itself, you will gain more followers and backers, and so those numbers change across the course of the campaign. So I'm exclusively referring to the ones from before the campaign, not the additional ones you get throughout the campaign. You're also looking at, on average, 9% of all converted draft followers converted in the last day of the campaign, and 17% in the last 3 days. So again, even though there's going to be some degree of conversion over time, that's just where those people are going to convert. And 14% of people following 2023 crowdfunding campaigns, for the based on end date, followed something else on Gamefound for the first time, as well as 14% of followers have never pledged on Gamefound before. So this just goes to the general, percentage of people who are new to Gamefound at any given point, and what percentage of them are just jumping on something new and becoming a new follower of the platform. And the last piece of information we have over there is all backers, the all backers draft ratio is 44%, meaning I just said 26% from the initial followers. So again, if you have 10,000 people, 2,600 of them will convert to backers on average. Keywords for this entire video, not the entire video, the whole last statistics part, but you're going to see on average 44% as a total conversion ratio, means you're basically seeing around 18% is going to come in additionally. In addition to that 26%, you're going to see another 18% from the total, whatever it is, coming through, which I think that breakdown works out to around 59% of your backers are coming from your pre-campaign beginning. So 59% of the people who back your project already followed your project, and then the other 41% come in throughout the course of the campaign. So you're going to see that additional breakdown, which again, just worth knowing. If you see 10,000 backers, on average, 10,000 followers, I gotta stop saying backers. If you see 10,000 followers in your campaign, on average, you can expect to see 4,400 backers by the time all is said and done. Again, this is an average. I can point to campaigns that have had a, an 11% follow through ratio where they had 10,000 followers and only 1,100 backers. I can point to campaigns in that category, and I can point to campaigns that had more than 100%, which is really weird, but it actually has happened. There have been a few campaigns that had more backers than followers. Usually it's a small number because it doesn't happen on the larger campaigns, but you might have 1,000 backers and only 700 followers. That can happen if somebody just backs without ever following, which is an exception, but it does happen. I'd say on average, the more normal exception would be a campaign that might have a 70% conversion rate, in terms of followers to backers. They might have, 40,000, followers and 30,000 backers. That's a more typical exception, which is a weird phrasing, but it's a more typical exception than the ones that actually go above. That's just some general data. So the next time you're looking at a crowdfunding campaign, whether on Kickstarter or Gamefound, you'll have some idea of what those day one numbers look like, what followers to backers convert at. You'll be able to go ahead and turn to your friend and be like, that campaign currently is at $400,000. I bet it'll hit $1 million by the end, and impress your friend with all your crowdfunding analytics knowledge. Of course, that'll be the time that is completely wrong. There are times where things are completely wrong, whether on Kickstarter, Gamefound, or BackKit. There are times where the averages simply do not line up with the norm. That's just the way numbers tend to work. In any case, that is your 2023 kind of general crowdfunding conversation, analytics breakdown, general market size, pools, comparison of platforms to some extent, trying to keep it more objective and less opinionated. I hope you found this video interesting. I find most of the stuff incredibly interesting. I find this stuff incredibly interesting in general, and I just thought it was a fun video to share. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.